So, as always, we start where we ended. And this time, I want to cover shakes a bit. First of all, shakes are probably one of the most important things to your edit. If we cover effects, because shakes it's an effect. I think I really like simplicity. I don't fuck a lot with many effects, but shake is basically an effect you can use on everything, and it often just makes everything look a lot better. But shakes are also kind of difficult if you want to make them really good. And first, I'm not good at it, or not really good at it. But some people are very good at shakes, and then they like boost the video by tons just with adding shakes, because they can really make pan crop and impact and general movement of clips and stuff look way better than they did before. So if you're very good with shakes, then you should really also use it. That's why we often use shakes in every video, also if I'm not the best at it. But basically, if you add the basic effect S_shake, which is where everything starts, then you have an amplitude and a frequency. First of all, those are like in physics and stuff. The amplitude is like, you can also call it the what could you call it actually? It's the strength. If you point it a lot up, then then you can see the shake. If you do it to 0, then it's not. So it's like kind of the value you wanna change to animate your shake. The frequency is like in physics, like how often something does it. So if you drag this up to like 90, for example, then you can see it goes completely crazy. And if you drag it down to 1, then it does it very slowly. So it's like how the words basically explain itself. It's the frequency of it, which on default is on 8. Now let's up to just make it, because I just want to visualize you the effects a bit. So let's start off with dragging those 3 main things down to 0. Z-shake is zooming in or zooming out, I guess. I've never used this shake setting here. The ones I use are tilt, Y-shake, X-shake, seed, phase, motion blur, amplitude, and frequency. But the most important effects are amplitude, frequency, then the X ramp, the Y ramp, and the tilt ramp. So basically, X shake is horizontal shake, left to right, as you also can see on this part here. And if you now would play it, then the shake jumps from left to right, as you can see here. The Y shake goes from up down, like vertical. So if you now play it, it jumps up and down. And the tilt shake is kind of like rotation a bit. If you watch it, it goes like, it's like rotating around here, tilting. Those are the 3 shake types, I want to call it now, because you can make an X shake, and Y shake, and a tilt shake, or you can mix all together. I'm a fan of separating them, like making separately shakes. So I make one X shake and one Y shake and one tilt shake, and you can basically use them for everything. But first of all, let's just focus on the impact now. I think tilt shake is probably the shake that most people use in game editing. I think it's the most popular shake, and it kind of makes sense, since the rotation on games, for example on shots, often look good. So for that, we actually don't need to keyframe it, but you want to drag up the tilt ramp value. Don't make it too high. I would say between 3 and 20 maybe. You can also make them a lot higher if you want to play around with it, but I would usually stick to something between 2 and 20 or something like this. And then you also want the frequency. The frequency, as you remember, is how often something hits, and if you keep it on 8, you can see it goes very crazy. And on tilt shake, I wouldn't recommend you to do the highest frequency that you probably have used. So often using a bit lower could be something. I normally do, I think, between 2 and 6. And you can just visualize it again here, how it would look. And you can play around with the setting. For the amplitude though, you kind of want to stick between probably 0.5 and 2 or something. Don't go too high, don't be too low. If it's too low, you don't even really recognize it. If it's too high, then your shake will take too much space and then it looks shit again. Let's in this example do some very basic stuff by just going from 0, because if you delete this 0 keyframe, then it will, before that it will shake completely, so keep it on 0. First, like the shots where you have a scope in, you can either way place it so it doesn't affect the scope in, and then the shake starts here, or you can take it with you. It's a bit, I think both things work. But yeah, and then as another thing in After Effects, the animation or like the graph is key. Like this, you got a very clean shake. Now you can maybe adjust the wave amplitude. So if you now look at it, it goes a bit more wavy. But as you see, I don't like the wave amplitude. I only use them on Y shakes and X shakes. On tilt, I mainly keep this setting, something like this. And I think this already looks kind of good. But we're not done, because we need to adjust, especially the Y shake. I don't often use X shake, but let's also cover it in this video. But basically just copy these settings we use on Y to the X, because they will work on both things. It's just up and down and sideways. So for Y, I also use that on the impact itself, and on this I like to adjust both values here. So maybe something like this. Then the frequency we can keep or make it a bit lower or make it a bit higher. But on the frequency on Y you can make it higher, because it's like a bump that we create. But I'll just use something like this maybe. And then for Y, I actually keep the animations linear. Might wonder why, but I don't know. Animating them would, because it just needs to be like a quick bump in where it shakes up and down. And if you animate it for too long, it will look shit, so you want to keep it slowly. And if you animate it here, then if you, for example, would do something like this, then you wouldn't even notice the thing, because it's basically just noticeable on the one frame. So just keep it linear, and if you now watch it, you see it's shaking up and down, which can be too much. So you can just lower the setting here, but let's just play around with it. And you can also obviously change these settings inside here. But yeah, just play around with it and kind of keep those two in a bit of the same, if you want to do this bump and shake. But something like this already looks good. And then maybe we do this to something like this. And then maybe on this point. Something like this, yes. And now, basically, if you already know how to do those, you can just use them on the other part of the videos as well. So let's just create one X shake at the end, and then we just use them on our pan crop. So the X shake, some values here, then add them to where it zooms in. Then on this part where it zooms in, you can maybe even play around with the tilt shake. I don't often use the tilt shake on the smaller pan crops, because if you, for example, at this point, if you have it, you see the tilt shake it's very obvious, so it often only looks good if you go from a high scale value to a low one, or you need to add motion tile or reptile, CC reptile or what it's called. But if you do like a screen pump, as we did, then you can maybe use it. You just need to look that you don't get any parts of the video where it shows the border. And on this part again, I want to zoom in or I want to shake it a bit. And I can just end like here, that's fine. Well, that's a bit too much. Maybe we also do an X shake. Something like this. Okay, that's too much, so we need to adjust the frequency. Oh, that's the wrong button. Where did I go? This one we kind of want to frequency, we got it right here, so we want to keep it on this, but then for this part here you want to go down, and then we got something like this. It's maybe shaking a bit too much on this part even, so maybe lower it, but yeah, this doesn't need to be a masterpiece, it's just how briefly you can do it. Yeah, should look okay.